Excellent. Welcome everybody to Insight with Moonshadow. I am Moonshadow. Now, the topic of this conversation today, it's something where it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter where you are on the planet. It affects all of us, really. Intuition and your inner critic. So to start off, let's start with intuition. You find yourself in a position or a situation when you kind of know when something's not right or if it feels right, whether it be a job interview, or you're in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the right time, or vice versa. Now, that being said, intuition, not everyone uses or utilizes their intuition as much as they could or should. It's something where we all have that ability. That's our, higher self, or if it's within your belief systems, your life protectors and totems telling you or warning you about a situation. So that being said, a lot of times we don't necessarily listen to our intuition. Just as an example, to give you a clue, an idea, I remember I was driving down the highway at one point in time. It was very late. I was working quite a bit at the time, and I was driving down the highway. And out of my periphery, I saw a flash of blue, just a flash. Now, it was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was nobody around. There was absolutely no one around. I felt like I was the only person on the highway. But what ended up happening was I shrugged it off, swept it away, and said, and I'm the only person here. Who's out here? Literally within 20 seconds, all of a sudden I see blue lights, and I was getting stopped for speeding. So now, ever since that time, I always focused on what my intuition had said, just because it kind of keeps you in check and it kind of keeps you safe in a lot of ways. Now, with intuition, and if you have any questions whatsoever, any input, feel free. You can go ahead and put it on the side in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions. I will answer questions the best I can. If I don't know, we'll find out to get the answer for you, for sure. Both with intuition, regardless whether you're a scientific mind or you're a concrete thinker or you're an abstract thinker and an artist, it doesn't make a difference, because intuition still plays a part of it. So it's important for you to, just think about it, because that inner voice could be helpful or hurtful. And this is when we come down to the inner critic. Now, the inner critic, it's actually meant to do well by you. It's actually meant to keep you safe. Very much like when your parents say, don't do this or don't do that kind of thing. Ultimately, it wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you from embarrassment. It wants to keep you from judgment. Okay, well, True Gift says it's hard. There's 3 voices in my head. Well, you have multiple, if you think about it, you have multiple aspects of your higher self. It could be, life protectors, totems, and that. And it could also be, your inner critic as well. So it's kind of, it's really important to look at what they're saying, how they're saying, and for you to be able to look at if it's helpful for you or if it's harmful for you. So that's really, really key. So now the inner critic, say for example, say you're someone that wants to do a startup. You've been working like a dog at a company for the last 50 years. And you have this incredible idea and this incredible startup. This is when the inner critic comes in. The inner critic comes in and says, what do you know? How do you know you're going to succeed? Why should you even bother? You've been at this company for 50 years. Why don't you just stick it out and stay safe? Now, if you really look at that, there are many aspects to the inner critic. That was good in one aspect and it was not so good in another. Staying safe and not taking a risk isn't necessarily always the way to go, especially now with what you see in the economy and what you see people, CFOs and CEOs getting replaced at the drop of a hat, But with your inner critic, it's up to you to make peace with it and to be able to silence your inner critic. When you silence your inner critic, then you are able to really stand out and shine brightly to what you want to do, because everything takes risk. So anyone that has done anything in the world, they took a risk and they didn't necessarily stay safe, Okay, we have Mel asking a question here. Okay, what's schizophrenic in dementia, and why does it become harmful, and how do you prevent? Okay, well, when it comes to that, you want to look at what is actually doing it. Like if someone is hearing voices, it could just be something like I myself, I will hear and feel and get information. I am not schizophrenic. Okay. However, when it comes down to brain chemistry and mental illness, it's a little bit different. So that's something where that's when you kind of have to look and see what is the balance there too. Also too, when you hear voices, what do they tell you? Because one person that I had spoken to, I was doing intuitive readings and healing work at a bookstore, and this person had came in, and she was someone that heard voices, was part of the system, was taking medication and everything. And she had, stopped and told me that, well, I hear voices and I'm taking medication because I'm taking voices, because I'm hearing voices. And, basically my psychiatrist and everyone's telling me I'm crazy. Now I sat there and listened and used my intuition and asked her those important questions. I asked her, okay, what are the voices telling you? And she said, well, usually bringing me information. They're giving me information about people. I said, is it negative, harmful? Are they telling you to do anything bad or say anything bad? Give me more information. And she said, no, usually it's helpful information. Usually it's information to help them or assist them in one way, shape, or form. So then at that point, I said, well, have you ever actually listened to it and actually given the message to other people? And basically what ended up happening was she started listening to those voices and actually went ahead and started to communicate. Well, the great thing about this is that she went from being on medication and being part of the mental health system to no longer taking medication, and she's doing intuitive readings for other people. And it was literally her inner counsel that was giving her information to help people. So now we have Rye Vibration here saying being mentally illness hinges upon functioning in society. Symptoms like voices don't necessarily mean you're mentally ill. It's more about functioning. Okay, beautiful. And thank you so much for that, Rye. I appreciate that. Now, that is true. There are societal norms. It also depends on how it disrupts your life. Anything that disrupts your life will be problematic. So that's absolutely, and I appreciate that input. So it's about day-to-day functioning. If it's going to affect you in a bad way, then yeah, you definitely need to get it checked out. You have to get it looked at so you can actually be able to function as normally as you can, whatever the word normal is, as successful as you can. Okay, we have Mel saying, okay, what about warp and effed up imagination that goes hand in hand, and you don't want it? Well, you have a choice. You have a choice, like anything else. If you don't want to hear someone, you can go ahead and say, I'm just really not into hearing you right now. You have more control over it than you think. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay, True Gift says, for me, it's my guides, my super ego, and just me. My ego is afraid. It almost seems like it's a different entity clinging on. Well, it will do that. Your inner critic and your ego, which aren't necessarily the same, by the way. A lot of times what will end up happening is your inner critic does not want you to win, okay? It doesn't want you to take a risk. It wants to keep you safe. Just like in the extent of, okay, say for example, you have a children. I'm sure we have parents and we have parents here that have children. Now, say for example, if you shelter your children so much so that they don't get to experience life, are you doing them an assist? Are you helping them, or are you harming them? I had a friend that was very, very sheltered. His parents sheltered him very much. What ended up happening was he was not prepared for the world when it came time to him being his own independent self. So the inner critic has a way of telling you, no, don't do that. What are people going to think? People going to think you're crazy, or people aren't going to use your service. They're not going to go to your business. They're not going to do a lot of that. And this is a big part of your inner critic. And this is where you need to make peace and understand when your inner critic is being helpful or hurtful. Is it keeping you safe, or is it getting in your way? Now, Right Vibration says, Asa Gioli is a psychiatrist that dealt with mysticism and mental illness. The difference between mental illness and mystic is that the mystic is treading water and the mentally ill person is drowning. Again, it's about functioning. I agree completely. I agree completely. And I've had 30 plus years of experience of working with multiple different peoples, many different, I say lost souls, but it's not necessarily they weren't found. So it is about functioning and how you can function in the world. Okay, Carlos is saying, and welcome, Carlos. I was a sheltered kid and did not help. However, I became my own self thanks to that. And this is the key. Sometimes we have to, and this is a whole different topic of discussion down the road, is reparenting yourself. That if you are sheltered to the point where you stay safe all the time, then you don't feel like you have the confidence or the ability to do anything out of the box or do anything further than what is expected of you. And that's the unfortunate thing. The inner critic only wants you to do what's expected of you. That's a huge, huge, huge thing. Now, True Gifts is saying, I'm trying to make a drastic decision that will benefit my life, but my mind yelled at me, almost had another psychotic break. Okay, now, True Gifts, this is one of the things. I would suggest trying to stay in balance the best you can. It is not easy to maintain balance with a lot of things, especially not with the way we are today. The way we are today, we're multitasking all the time. It's kind of hard. But if you have to really look at it almost from an out of box perspective or a third person perspective. You need to look at what is helpful within you and what is not. So that's really important. Now Mel's saying, I think I need medication. Thanks for helping. Honestly, really makes sense. Okay. So now the inner critic. Now, thinking about this, okay, how many times? And I'm sure we've all experienced the inner critic. Don't get on that swing. You're going to fall. Be careful. Don't do this because people are going to make fun of you. Don't speak up because you're going to get judged. All these things, they come into play. So we are having this inner dialogue, this inner communication in our own minds. And some people don't even realize it. They don't even notice. So this is what the important thing about the inner critic, and this is why this conversation has come up. This is why I wanted to bring this conversation to the table and to the show, because all of us have the inner critic, and all of us can also silence that inner critic, make peace with that inner critic, and be able to function and focus. Just the beginning of this own show, of my own show here on Blab. You know, I could have, what do you have? You know, my inner critic was speaking to me. He was yelling at me. What do you have? You don't have a PhD. You don't have this and that. Even though I've been doing 30 plus years of experience in working with people, even though I'm a reflexologist and a clinical hypnotherapist, Reiki master teacher, blah, 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 all of that. But the point was, my inner critic was telling me I wasn't good enough. That's when you have to look at it and say, you know, I'm doing this and I'm taking the risk, because there may be people that could use the information. You should extend yourself. It's not always good to be safe. So in seeing that, is there anything or anyone that would like to share their story about or an experience about their inner critic? You're welcome to come on up, call in, hop in a seat, because this conversation is needed, especially with what we're doing here and what we're doing now. You have a lot of people here on this platform that want to share something. And a lot of times the inner critic decides to come in and goes, oh no, we can't do that. You can't talk about, you know, totem animals and life protectors and shamanistic stuff. No, you have to be a marketer. You have to be this, or you have to be a that. You have to sell a product or something, you know. I had to silence my inner critic. And then also too, it's important to find exactly. And Laura says that's bull. And it's important to know when and when not to listen. You know, it's important. Sorry about that. And that's important here. Be yourself. If there's anything that anyone has ever heard from any kind of conversation from me, myself, it's always been, be yourself. No one else can be you as well as you can be you. So there's no reason for not risking. There's a lot of people that are out there that won't agree with you, and that's okay. There's a lot of people that don't understand you, and that's okay. But also, too, that there are people that will support and will back you up. And a perfect example of that is a lot of the people in this room. A lot of the people in this room have been incredibly supportive. So, you know, you guys were always much more powerful than my inner critic. So now, okay, we have Mel coming in. Thank you. And thanks for your patience for waiting for me to let you in, because there is an extra couple of steps here to let you in. Mel, finally I get to see you. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Welcome.
Well, oh, awesome. Hey, I do sabotage myself with my inner talk. I'm a Gemini, and as a kid, I used to be a big thinker. No, I used to think, I was that why child. Why is this? Well, how does this work? This, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Drive the family, balmy, always a talker. So my ego mind was functioning 2 to the dozen right at the beginning of, you know, an early age. And now I'm suffering. I'm suffering with my ego mind. I'm intuitive. You know, I understand when messages come into me. I sense it. I get warnings through dreams and stuff, but I can't switch the goddamn ego. And that's what's killing me inside. So I want to know if the ego has to have an asset. It has to have an asset to me. It can't be a destroyer. There's got to be something that the ego mind can do to help me manifest with it, to work in partnership. I don't want to fight it. I know you release and let it flow, but the voices that it gives out is quite hurtful and tormenting. And it can also fuck up meditation. You know, you get into a really nice stance and all of a sudden the ego mind comes in and warps the whole scenario and it just pisses you right off. I'm going to use language today because that's
it's
how
okay.
you feel.
You know, it's perfectly all right. I have no problem with that. I have a very good familiarity with a lot of the extreme descriptives. I just try to be as polite as possible because they can fly out very easily. Now,
Absolutely.
First thing I have to say to you, Mel, and I can say this now to you personally, good for you for questioning. One of my things, you know, one of my favorite quotes is question authority. Because if you don't question it, if you're just going to take it, you're not going to know. You're not going to know. You're just going to take it. You know, unfortunately, people that choose not to, if they just drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, I amorously call them sheeple.
Yeah.
You know, but that's it. But it's a choice. It's a choice. So I don't judge them for choosing or not choosing. It's their choice, and that's fine. Now, with you asking why, you would not be the you are if you didn't ask why.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have done half of the things you've done in life if you didn't ask why.
Exactly. I benefit from being the why kid because I get my hands in everything. I'm sort of like the free spirit child, you know what I mean? And I loved that. I loved my child. It's just now it warps everything. And it's just like, get out of my life. Let me channel in the true purpose of who I am. Let me help people. But I need to help myself. I have this fear that, you know how some people like doctors, they help others, but they can't help themselves? I have that fear within that I'm here just to help others and I destroy myself within, and I don't want that. I'm greedy. I want me, you know, and then I can help more.
Well, see, there's a thing. I will say this. Not often you're going to hear me saying selfish is good, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say this. This is on record. Being selfish for the right reasons is good because if I wasn't selfish or provided good self-care for me, then I can't help you. If I'm a mess, if I'm losing the plot and falling apart, then how can I help you? So there is a level, there's a level of energy and there's a level of self-care that you need to maintain to be a good person to other people. So there's nothing wrong with you being a little greedy as far as wanting to maintain and make sure that you are okay. It is perfectly okay to say no to help somebody. If you don't have enough to give them, then you're being disingenuous to them because you're only doing it half-assed. You're not helping them. You're just kind of like, you know, just kind of placating them instead of really trying to help them. So that's really key here. Now, also, too, you have a little bit of an issue here because you're a Gemini. I have a lot of experience with Geminis. Geminis are one of the most indecisive, incredibly stubborn signs in the zodiac.
But now, we can't change it. And then people give us advice and we find ourselves. We have to find us to get it. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because we can get a Pisces, we can get a Pisces or any other star sign, put the imprint because it's their personality and try to give it to us when it actually doesn't fit and we fight. There's two of us. We're schizophrenics. They say that, that's how they class us. And when someone says I don't find that insulting. I get it. Do you know what I mean? If you said it to someone else, they'd be like, no, I'm not, blah, blah, blah. But I've got high energy. There's, we flip ourselves in and out. We destroy ourselves and then we love ourselves. And it's just yin and yang. It's just, how do you balance a Gemini? Can you? Are we supposed to be like this and work that out?
And you can, and it's still right within what we're talking about.
Exactly, you can't.
It's that inner. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah. It takes work, like anything else. It's like you're in a critic.
Absolutely.
A long time ago, I had a lot of different issues with my own inner critic and balancing out a lot of things in my life. And I had to, and everyone, uh, laughing, jokingly, I'll tell people that I'm half angel. Well,
Yeah.
not everyone could be good all the time. No one's perfect, of course. But the thing
Yeah.
is, I had to come to a point in my life where I had to make peace with my demons because they would just drive me nuts.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the balance of it all.
Yeah.
So with your ego and with your inner critic and you
Mm.
being a Gemini, it may take a little more work. However,
Yeah.
the one good thing that you do, one of the good things that you have is that you have the fortitude and the inner strength to be able to shut up or silence or make peace with your inner critic. You can do that. You say, you know what? You need to back off because I'm
Mm.
doing my job. I'm doing exactly what I want. And I don't need you sticking your 2 cents in it because I'm doing this anyway.
Yeah.
So you need to put your inner critic in its place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. But then it gets hard, and that's why I said medicine. Shut the whole wing off. Let's just channel in from the heart, and I'm over it. But then I've got to turn it around and say there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a purpose. Because when you say shut it down, then you have empathy, right? And you say, well, I can't just separate that from my body because it is part of my body. Does that make sense?
And
Then
that's
you
when
get
you
that
have to
whole.
begin.
I know, and then you get then it talks again because you're like, yeah, you're right. I'm still here. Do you know what I mean? But then
Yeah.
I've got to think you are whole, and you shut it off. Yes, totally. And being a loving natured person, especially being a mum, because mothers always have that loving instinct straight away. You want to see that and say, right, now you're my mate as well. Come on, because I want to love all myself. I love myself. So I can't not love. When you get that hate, I hate this, but then you fight yourself and say, no, I've got to love it too. It's a vicious cycle.
A lot of
But
times your inner critic is like an overprotective parent. If you think about it that way,
yeah,
your parents
yeah,
mean well. They love you. They mean well, but they'll
mm,
say shit to you that you're like,
yeah,
really, really?
yeah,
Do I need
yeah,
to hear this right now? So this is
yeah,
the thing. So if you look at your inner critic as it's part of you, you need
yeah.
to understand it. You need to know when to say, I've had enough. And then you can
Mm,
move on with that. So that's all very, very important. So let's we have you're welcome to stay in the seat if you'd like, Mel. I guess I see here True Gifts has a couple of questions as well, has some questions. So going to let them in if True Gifts wants to come in, or you can just put your questions in the chat. Up to you.
Coupe asked me a question about my favourite colour. I wonder if he's into chakras because I am, but my favourite colour is orange.
Now, orange. This
love
is like
orange.
Hello.
a lot of hey True Gifts. This is the great thing about the show and the conversations that we have so far. This being the third episode, is that people bring up so many other different possibilities of things. Now, just to broach it a little bit because I don't want to get off topic too much. Orange is creativity, it's sex, and it's cash. It's also the second chakra. So that's just giving you a little bit of some info for you so you can check out. But it's interesting. And if you want, we can delve into that a bit after this blab.
All right.
Excellent. Okay, True Spiritual Gifts. Hey, welcome.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah. My question is like, how do you deal with like schizophrenic stuff or like kind of psychotic stuff? I'm not sure.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna have to say this. I am not a doctor. I am not, a psychiatrist. I have been able to do a lot of different counseling from a pastoral or a spiritual aspect of things. However, I can only help you from, or answer your question from my scope of practice.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and thanks for that, Lance. Now, the one thing with schizophrenia, I do believe it isn't functioning. I think it depends on how functioning you are, how much, I'm a big subscriber to the fact of balancing Eastern and Western medicine, because I've been the recipient of both sides, Eastern and Western medicine simultaneously. So you have to know when to focus on what side. If it's a brain chemistry thing, then you obviously going to need to do that on one end. You know what I mean? So what is specifically your question? Like, what do you?
Well, recently it's like, well, it mixes with like my intuition. It's not just that. So it's like I kind of know when things are going to happen and they happen. Like I see my, like, oh, this is going to happen. My friend happens, or does that. But I just don't want to have a third psychotic break in my house. That's something I won't allow, because I don't want to end up back in a mental institution.
Right.
So.
Well, of course not. It's not something you don't want to. You don't want to cause that kind of major interrupt in your life, for sure.
Yeah. And I've had them too, but they were spiritual oriented. Like, I felt like my whole reality was like I was pulled out. Like, it was crazy.
Okay, understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I recognize that person. That's why I coaxed them back into chat. But anyway. But yeah, so with what you're saying, I think it's important that you maintain and make sure that you are fully, always checked out within yourself. Yeah. It's all about balance too with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the frustration is I feel like these beings or something are pushing me to have another, well, they call it Kundalini, but whatever. But they're like, I feel like I'm being nudged, and it's like there's no other option, but I don't know how else to describe it.
Okay.
I just really don't want it to happen again, because I don't want to end up, I care about my freedom more than anything, and if I end up a second time, they're probably not going to be as nice that time. So.
Right. Well, it depends on also too. Intuition isn't necessarily meant to hurt you. It's meant to help you, and it's meant to support you. So it all depends on what you're being told. If it's a lot of negative speak, or if it's a lot of harmful things, then you may need to really check with someone. Now, of course, we're in an open forum where there are a lot of people in the room. I don't want to get into too much of your personal story, and I don't want you to have to share that personal story unless you'd want to. But I would definitely say to you that it is incredibly important that you have a safe outlet, a person to talk to. So this is something that you should bring to your therapist and tell them what's going on. Now, I can understand
because of that when that happened, I did have a therapist for like 3 years. I think the program is like today. This year is the last year of the program,
right?
But I mean, she doesn't understand anything like about this kind of stuff, like, because it was more than just like mental issues. Because both of those breaks, like my reality, like I was pulled out of it, and I was like in a different. I was going like through dimensions or something, and it was extremely frightening.
Okay.
It was like I was close to death each time or something, but it felt more like it was my ego dying, trying to hang on.
Well, I can give you a little suggestion, a little technique that you can use when you find yourself losing grip. One thing you can do is do a guided meditation, or try to hold on or ground yourself. Because a lot of times, like even with like I've worked with people that have panic attacks, and sometimes the most simplest ways can get you over the hump and help you feel better. So imagine yourself grounding out. Imagine yourself like becoming a tree, or find yourself gaining root. If you actually physically are somewhere where you can literally put your feet onto the ground and really connect with the earth, they actually have a technique called earthing, where you're walking around barefoot.
Yeah.
and you're connecting with that energy of the earth, which is a healing energy. So my suggestion to you is, if you find yourself really starting to lose grip of things, just breathe and focus on grounding again, because that could make all the difference. And then when you do find yourself feeling grounded, and then at that point call a professional, depending on how far it is.
Yeah, I have been practicing some of that recently, and it's been working. I mean, I'm just trying to get more like tips to implement and stuff like that. Not necessarily like saying, "Oh, well, you're this is your professional or doctor or whatever." I'm just trying different things. So, yeah,
Understandable. Yeah. Welcome, Cindy. Now, also, I will say this as well, is that if I do have, and on my website, I do have a tab that's all about informative, like meditative stuff, interesting information, but also too, YouTube is an incredibly huge source of being able to get guided meditations, journeys, things like that to calm you down. So you're welcome to do either or. I have a bunch of videos, from candle meditations to chakra meditations to Ganesh, Indian type stuff, Buddhists, singing bowls, right on my website.
yeah. I've noticed that music really helps me. The right kind of music. I always feel like a tingling sensation on my head if it's like good music. It's like any Indian music or like really epic like metal music or just anything that feels good. I feel it like here. So yeah, music actually it does help for me.
So that's something that I would definitely suggest, trying to calm yourself the best you can. Definitely work with what works with you as well. So if a certain type of music keeps you nice and calm and keeps you grounded, then definitely use that. Definitely use whatever it works, whatever works for you, for sure. So I would absolutely suggest that. But also, too, keep the professionals in your life, keep them in check with it. Certain things are going to be difficult, because depending on your therapist and what they believe or where their school of thought is, sometimes they could be helpful, sometimes not as helpful. But even if you find someone that does work with the other aspects of things, your intuition, meditation, things like that, and you could reach out to me whenever you'd like. Just shoot me a DM.
Yeah,
I'd be glad to help with whatever I can.
I mean, my therapist, she isn't a bad person. She just doesn't understand these kind of things, and I actually haven't seen her in months, just because like I just it's very I guess I feel like I'm not being helped.
Right.
She
Well,
doesn't.
that may mean you need a different therapist.
Yeah.
You may need to work with a different therapist. And again, no disrespect to your therapist, it just might not be the greatest fit. So, I have a friend that looked for a therapist and found a therapist that was very challenging to this person, but this therapist makes things happen. So, you know what? Sometimes you have to, break a few eggs to make a cake, but it's a good fit, in other words. So my suggestion to you is also to find that balance and find that fit, so you can gain a real good rapport with your therapist, so they can really help you, because they can only help you to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So I hope that helped you answer your question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for helping.
Super.
Well, if anyone else wants to ask questions, I guess.
And thank you very much. It's always a pleasure seeing you. And David, welcome. We have a few people that are in the room. Would like to welcome them. Okay, we got Latanya. We have David. Cindy, welcome.
Oh, I got an interesting thing. I actually got gifted this cockroach shirt. This
Yep.
LaRoche today. And then I looked up the spirit totem thing, and it said that not many people have it. It's like most people wouldn't want this, but it's a powerful totem of like survival and rebirth and stuff like that, and like protect. I don't know.
You know what? That is awesome that you went ahead and you researched it, because a lot of people would immediately say, cockroach, what's that all about? So that's really, really good that you went ahead and researched it. And you are right. They are very, very, they are survivors.
Yeah.
So if you go ahead and connect with that totem, that means you are going to survive and you're going to get past all these obstacles that are affecting you now. So good for you, man.
Well, I mean, I pay attention to the physical world, like everything, like even like this crystal right here. Like I don't just look at this crystal. I examine the edges. I look at like the polish, all the little defects. That's how I examine things in my day-to-day life.
Well, we all, it's all part of us, right? The physical as well as the ethereal.
Yeah.
So we are mind, body, and spirit for a reason. So all of us, you need to connect with all the different parts of you, for sure.
And it's also part of my intellectual mind. I just examine. I break things like this. I'll break it apart in segments and try to analyze. It's like it's different values at different angles.
That is very cool. Well, it's good that you do that. For sure.
So it's just the way I guess I operate on a day-to-day basis.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the way you operate. Like I said, as long as that you can still function and still be able to get past and be as balanced as you can and be as functional as you can for yourself, for your spirit, for your psyche. That's the important thing. So as long as you keep on wanting the best for you and focusing on the best for you and how you interact with other people and how impactful you are to others, I think that, you're on the right track anyway. So just keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you.
No worries. Now, is there anyone else that'd like to come in? If you have a question, if you'd like to share any experience with your inner critic, intuition, inner critic, how things have kind of gotten in your way.
Yeah.
Will, nice to see you.
Yeah, if anyone wants, I can get off and someone else can ask questions.
Well, thank you so much, True. And again, always a pleasure seeing you, and rock that cockroach totem. You have to let me know more about it if you find out more about the cockroach totem. Cool.
Oh, wait, do you know my real name?
No.
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel. Okay.
It's Ezequiel Reyes.
Awesome. Well, it's very nice to meet you, Ezekiel. Do you go by Ezekiel or?
Well, my friends call me Izzy, but I usually go by Ezekiel.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, Ezekiel. I'm going to coax you over to chat. However, any questions you have, feel free to DM me. Okay.
All right.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Okay, if there's anyone else that wants to come in, I know we see Kristen. Kristen, welcome in. We're talking today about insight and your intuition and your inner critic. Well, thank you very much, Carlos. I'm doing the best I can. It's a work in progress. I don't normally provoke. Well, yeah, I tend to provoke people with thinking. However, I'm going to provoke someone to come into the seat. And I'm going to provoke Cairo to come into the seat because I'm sure she has an experience for her inner critic. She's a free spirit. And of course, she's accepting my challenge, which is fantastic. And this conversation is about your insight and about your inner critic and how it affects you. So, Cairo, Kristen Roder.
Sorry, I'm late. What did I miss?
A lot of questions. A very good conversation so far, but you're welcome to join in.
Cool.
So we're talking about intuition and your inner critic. Do you have any experiences? Now, also, just to give you a little insight on Cairo here, she works with flying pigs. Well, not really flying pigs, but she has a flying pig Jeep, and she's also in the process of spreading Sparkle, which is on a big, huge project as well, regarding getting out there and doing this really big, huge, really great thing. So now, the topic of conversation today is your inner critic. Yes. Now, did your inner critic, did it have any part of you becoming who you are, and what did it say, and how did you manage it? Because that's what I want to know. That's why I provoked you into the chat today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, actually, let's see. So I dreamed up the flying pig in 2010 and did a photo shoot in 2011, and then made the car in 2012. So here's the picture of the car. And when I did that, so it's a pink Jeep with gold wings, and
fellow Jeepster.
yeah, it's a Jeep, and yeah, when so yeah, while the Jeep was being made, I had a lot of dreams, like someone was going to assassinate me for having too much fun, and so yeah, the inner critic definitely was like, you need to go under the radar if you're going to drive this, and you should have a wig on or something, like, and a mask and all kinds of stuff. And for a little while, I believed that and played that game. And then I thought, no, that's not what I do. It's too hot, you know? So I think, yeah, I mean, I've had ebbs and flows, and some years the inner critic is more and stronger. And some years I'm like, no. Not today.
What's your dialogue? What's the dialogue like for you with your inner critic? Because I believe it is like an inner conversation.
Yeah, it's been.
What is that conversation like?
I don't believe you. You can't do it. And then if I have family around me, or people that are dear to me, and they look at me like they don't believe, and maybe it's my own head, right, of looking for symptoms or clues that they don't believe. Then I will, just run down that rabbit hole of, oh, yeah, who believes this? No one believes this. Like, pigs don't really fly. But then, I'll just get that irrepressible spirit drive thing that says, you can't not do this. You will never sleep again if you keep trying not to.
Yeah, so you would say that your inner child is much stronger than your inner critic.
For sure, yeah. Yeah.
And also, everybody, please give props to Kristen, because this is something where I also have to say, as well as like with Kristen, she's also finishing up 100 days of dance. She does this on, was it Periscope and was it Snapchat and Periscope? Or?
It's really on Instagram. It's KRO on
Instagram.
And it's the hashtag KRO 100 Days Project. And yeah, I'm on day 82, I think. We were going to dance today.
So she's 82 days in of dancing every day to a song. And I have to say, I've seen quite a few of them, and I think that is awesome. So you want to just keep it up. And this is a perfect example. The reason why I provoked her into coming in is because this is a perfect example of your inner child, or you making peace with your inner critic and saying, you know what, that's great. Listening to what you're saying, but I don't think so. And then you're moving on to what is your bliss, or what really your passion is to continue. And I think that's the big part of it, is your inner critic doesn't necessarily agree with what is your best 100% of the time.
Right.
So that's awesome. So you came in at the right time.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, the flying pig really is a flying pig of faith. And so, and as long as I keep my eyes on that, then anything's possible. The rest is just fake.
and that is true. Anything is possible if you put your mind to it.
Right.
So a lot of times people don't necessarily put their mind to it, or they let the inner critic or naysayers or family or other people say, oh, what do you, what makes you so important or so special for you to dance for 100 days, or for you to paint your Jeep pink, or whatever,
right?
Yeah. So all of it is empathic,
right?
So
and the dancing definitely helps. Like there was a time last fall even that was really looking sad and grim and not moving. No, I mean, I was like really hiding under a rock for a while, and I just decided that it was getting crowded under that rock and I needed some elbow room. And that's when I put the jams on and I started dancing. And once I did that, I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be Kristen again. And everyone noticed, because who can't not notice somebody feeling good about being themselves again? And yeah, that really helps. So if you are feeling depressed or sad or whatever, just put the beat on and dance to it.
And that's something that that I can say from intuitive experience and from life experience, is that when you truly find your balance and you find peace with your inner critic, then at that point you can't really you can actually function in a way where you're proud of yourself.
Right.
So, you know, Kristen herself has told me situations and things where she could not be this bright and shiny today because of experiences that have happened to her. So this is a perfect example of taking lemons and seriously making some serious lemonade.
Serious lemonade. Yeah, it looks like this is natural, and it kind of was born this way. But, you know, I think when I had my baby and she would wake up happy, you know, and that's just how I realized. I was like, oh, that's who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to wake up happy, and I'm supposed to like just enjoy the moment, whatever that moment is, and just try to be resilient with the rest of it.
So in a lot of ways, your own daughter is your muse, and
For
she
sure.
kind of
Yeah.
surpasses your inner critic.
Yeah, she does. And in fact, you know, if I know that I'm not living into my truth or my integrity, watching her and realizing that I'm her role model, you know, and even if I'm not, I'll pretend I am.
Well, that's mom's job. It's mom's job to say, I'm your role model.
It's your life. You can pretend whatever you want to pretend.
Very true. Very, very true.
Yeah. So, yeah, pretend that she cares and that I should do something with my life.
Definitely. I agree completely. And also too, you know, anyone that's in this room today, I would say follow them. I know a lot of these people. I've had conversations with these people. They're all really, really wonderful souls. So do follow each other. Do keep touch with each other, because I'll tell you, there are people in this room that have been with me from my first blab on. And it's like the evolvement and enlightenment from day one, minute one to now is like amazing. So ultimately, you know, follow people. I would definitely suggest following Cairo here. She is quite a force to be reckoned with. You know, there are people in this room that are just phenomenal beings and phenomenal spirits. So do follow them, do connect, say hey. You know, it's very, very important that we all have these conversations.
Yeah.
You know, and again, this is really, I really need to keep this to an hour, but here we go. It's almost an hour already. So this just says a lot about what's needed to be spoken about, what's needed in the conversation, what we need in to connect with other people. So it's just amazing stuff.
I have a question for you. Do you
Sure.
mind? So recently, Heather Neary, she had suggested to me that the divine masculine is the same kind of as the divine child. What do you think about that?
Okay. Well, this is going. She's a wizard. Heather Neary is a wizard, and she deals with the galactic. And if you can put in the link.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's related to that at all. I was just.
Oh, you don't think it's related? Okay. So explain again. It's the
divine masculine, divine feminine. I mean, because I think it's kind of dealing with your inner critic and intuition and like how,
right. Okay.
how you.
Well, first of all, we are polarities. We have a lot going on, and not a lot of people decide to think about it or think to. They don't think to address it. Let's say. So you have your polarities. You have your masculine, your feminine.
Right.
You have both, whether you like it or not. So it's kind of hard to say when one will dominate over the other. And ultimately, if we do what we're supposed to do the best we can, and again, this is just my opinion, you want to be as balanced as you can. It's never 50% all the time, but you try to balance it or remain balanced as much as you can within your own person. So the divine masculine to the feminine is very much like being connected to both polarities, because if you do certain things in life, certain things require the masculine, Some things, involve the feminine. So it's really important to kind of know what is which. Now, Lance is saying, is that like the left right brain thing? Well, not necessarily. It is and it's not, because the right tends to be very creative, which Kristen is working with right now, the creative. She doesn't want to deal with balancing her checkbook. The hell with that. She wants to deal with right brain. So she's been living in the right brain a lot.
Props. Thank you.
Right? Which the right brain thinking isn't terrible. However, anything that's out of moderation is not necessarily good. So you have to balance your checkbook so you can be right brained, right?
Well,
so now
I was asking because you referred to the child about following your bliss and overriding the critic. And so in that regards, like, and maybe I just missed too much today.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, well, first of all, we have our higher self, which tends to want to keep us safe. You have your inner critic, which also, it tends to, criticize you, judge you, tell you what to do, what not to do. But then there's also the inner child that wants to be in perpetual play, wants to be open to everything. And I'm a big proponent to not growing up, not letting your inner child grow up too much, because to me, in my opinion, you're ready to die at that point. If you don't play, enough, if you don't enjoy yourself, if you don't take a minute, take a pause to enjoy life, well, then you're ready to die.
Yeah.
It's no fun. So that balance is important. So the inner child and the divine masculine and feminine as well, they all play a part. And it's all about having that balance to say, is it all about just 9 to 5 and just me busting my butt doing my day to day? Or is it, I think I just want to go and, open the top off my Jeep and just go for a drive. We need that. You need that break, that pause. So to answer your question, I think I'm answering your question, is the importance is there. The inner child cannot run amok, because God forbid, if you had, your inner child running amok within your life, then they'd always want to be at the candy store, and they'd always want to be doing something else, and responsibility would be out the window.
Right. But I think in general, when you think about the inner child and thinking about my muse and watching her play and get lost in the flow of creativity or whatever, I think in that regard, like, I don't know. I think that there's something of a selfish bubble of, I am engrossed in this activity and no, I'm not going to come into dinner right now,
Right. Well, again, it's picking your battles and making the right decisions the best you can. Waiting a little bit for dinner is not bad, but if everyone goes hungry, well, then that's not good. So yeah, you want to kind of go with the balance of things.
We're all starving. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. You're welcome. Absolutely. Cairo, everybody, definitely follow her and catch her on Twitter. Also, check her on Instagram. 100 Days.
Cairo 100 Days Project.
And if you'd like, please type it into the chat so people can see it. And also, you can catch her blabs as well. Spreading Sparkle with Cairo. She's a newly persuaded blabber, and I'm very proud that she's getting out there and doing it. So Spreading Sparkle with Cairo, definitely look out for her on Blab. And parts unknown, you never know. She's building it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
The link right here. There you go.
Excellent. Now, if anybody else has a few questions, I know that it's close to the hour, so I have a feeling that we're probably going to run a little bit longer, because my inner critic is saying keeping it to an hour, and then my other part of me is saying, wait another 15 minutes. So there you go. However, anyone else have any questions, feel free to come in. You can share your experiences about your inner critic. You've anything that you may have decided where the right decision was by listening, because maybe the inner critic was helping you there, or deciding against your inner critic. So if you'd like to come in, pop into a chair, and to share that experience or have a question, feel free to pop up. This is a non-judgmental zone. This is all about just opening and having the conversation. So anybody that wants to come in, feel free to pop in. Any questions? Let's see here. Let's look to see if I missed any questions. I'm hoping I did not, because everyone is so awesome here that they're very interactive. So I need to pay attention all the time. So I really appreciate the interaction with everybody. And I think I got all the questions. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so here's a perfect example. With the inner critic, there are times that the inner critic is actually helpful. Because sometimes when you're really going to go off the reservation and you're really doing something or really thinking about something that's way wrong. Like there was an example. I had an opportunity to buying this house, this duplex. And it was a beautiful duplex, and the timing was kind of sort of right, but not really. And so at that point, my intuition is saying, well, I don't know. You think, is this the right thing to do? But then my inner critic came in. Now, this is one of the few times that my inner critic was actually listened to. Was, okay, if you go ahead and buy this property, what's going to happen if you buy this property and the economy is at a very delicate moment? So what are you going to do? What happened? What's going to happen? Are you willing to deal with the consequence of losing the property after you've just not fully thought of the possible consequence of buying this property now? Well, at that point, I had a powwow with my, inner critic, and I said, you know what? You have a point. Maybe I should do a rethink on this. And it made sense, because as soon as I did decide not to, that's when I found out there are other issues with the house in the sale that would have been problematic, and the economy did kind of go to crap a little bit. So that was a good moment for me to listen to my inner critic. That at that moment in time was a helpful moment. So they're not necessarily, it's like your parent wanting the best for you. Not everybody knows what's best for you, but sometimes they get it right. So that's kind of the point here, know when and when not to listen to your inner critic. And that's when intuition comes in.
Yeah. I like what Elizabeth Gilbert says about creativity, and you can take your inner critic, but you can't let fear drive your car, on the road trip, because you'll never get where you want to go. And so it's more about, trusting that,
Definitely. And if you've actually followed what your inner critic was saying, then you'd have never had a flying pig. You would have never had flying pig glasses, which you must demonstrate your glasses as well. This is how much the inner child has worked.
She's taking it really far. Yeah. She's gone plain nutty.
Yep. Yeah. So here you go. There we go. And this is just to spread sparkle in the world and kind of bring out the lighter things in life. So if she listened to her inner critic, she would have never had pink goggles to walk around in.
No.
So you wouldn't be as bright and shiny as you are today. And I appreciate, and I have to apologize to your inner critic. They were wrong. Goodbye.
They're wrong. Goodbye.
They're wrong. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
Nice knowing you, but it's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
We're still here.
Exactly. The world didn't end. We're still good.
Yeah.
So let me have my flying pig Jeep and my pink goggles, and I'm just going to spread sparkle. And oh well, I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
So yes. So anyone have any other questions? Any other questions? If you want to share anything, any experiences, you can share it in the chat. You could share it in popping into the seat. It's okay.
I'd love to know what some people have dealt with and how they overcame it. And yeah, come on up, anybody.
Okay, we have someone coming in. Let's see here. Jelly Bean. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Jelly Bean. You know, you have a very interesting handle. Jelly Bean Hangover. Right there, your inner critic was not listened to, was it?
Right.
It wasn't, you know, my inner critic was going, yeah, never mind.
I like it.
No, it's like, for me, it's a handle that I use because I was doing some adminning and stuff, and I love to laugh and I love to make people laugh. And laughter has been the biggest thing to get me through some of my lowest points.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to find that silver lining in the day and make it so small just to carry me through.
Right.
And I was sitting there and I go, man, what could I use? And I go, oh, Jelly Bean Hangover, because you get so excited and so filled with light and enthusiasm. You go way up here and then you sugar crash and you go, okay, I'm tired now.
And you know what? There is such thing as a sugar hangover.
I know there is.
I know there is. I get it with candy corn, actually.
Yeah.
Especially if you get into the jelly bellies. Jelly bellies are the devil. Jelly bellies are dangerous. Those jelly
They're
bellies.
gross. But I do like regular jelly beans. They are really good, just in moderation.
Yeah.
Because the hangover kind of does suck a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Very true.
Yeah.
So do you have an experience to share with your inner critic and how you didn't listen or listened?
You know, multiple experiences. In fact, I have journaled about it over the last year or so, and just the intuitive nature that I know that I've always had, that inner self. And in the last 2 years, it's been an extremely hard journey for me. I was just at the very pit of lowest of low. Just coming out of a domestic violence marriage that I had been in for 12 years and losing my kids and everything to CPS because of it. And just being way down there in the depths, you know, and him and just that little inner voice saying, just hold on just a little bit longer. I'm going to show you the light. I'm going to show you it's okay to be you, you know. And now it's like the more I reach out to people, you know, and come into myself, it's like, you know what, it really is okay to be me. And you know what, people actually like me for who I am, you know, and why should I change that? Because somebody thought that I should, because they were intimidated by my light or, you know what I mean? Like the way that I shine. And it's like, it's been a very beautiful experience.
That's great. Kudos to you coming on the other side.
That's important.
Yeah.
There is a quote that I hold very near and dear to me, and I love it. In fact, I tweet it very often too. And it's Dr. Seuss, and it's, "Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you." So now, you know, in saying that, that's kind of like telling the inner critic to screw, really. It's like saying, hey, listen, I need to be me. Don't get my way. Mm-hmm. Really.
You know, the entire trauma process of going through everything and realizing just how bad of a situation I was in, for a long time, I was in denial, you know, and believing that what I was experiencing was that bad. You know, and I just kind of fell into, and that stems partly from my childhood and going through an abusive childhood. And then when it finally kind of hit me, I ended up being diagnosed with PTSD. So really stepping out of that inner voice going, you know, oh, you can't do it. You know, people are scary. They're not going to like you, this, that, and the other. You know, the day that I was able to actually step out of that and go, no. I am not going to stay inside the house. I am not going to not talk to people. I am not going to I'm not going to sit there and not tell people my story just because you want to be your own critic. You know, there is people out there that need to hear this story because it's going to help them.
Right.
You know, and I was chosen for this journey for that very purpose.
Right.
You know, so.
And that's really key. And that's ultimately the thing. It's a lot of times our inner critic is is an entity or a part of ourselves that, even though they mean well, quote unquote, they want to keep you safe. You wouldn't be able to shine the way you are. You wouldn't be able to survive the way you have if you listened. Who knows what would happen? So that's really the big takeaway here. Evangelos too. We have Evangelos also in the room. Now, Evangelos, he also has blabs here as well, and he has a lot of different binaural beats and a lot of different therapeutic type blabs, which are very, very cool. Welcome, Evangelos. Nice to see you.
Awesome. Nice to see you guys, ladies. Awesome conversation, by the way. To just share with my inner critic experience with you guys, what helped me to suppress it, and sometimes is when try to doing a task, normally like the weight level of the scale we're talking, and I try to go squeeze myself to the point of if I was still in my mom's womb, like back to the childhood, so that basically eliminates all the fears, sensations that we normally generate when we excited to do something, or when we imagine that we just complete a task or got promotion type of things. To express that realistically, we just have to reverse the time clock on ourselves. And when we do that, and that alleviate us to the mutual point that you can really take the road that you choose with your most natural instincts, that what energy, good vibration tells you.
Oh, that's good. Now, in communication, or in the conversation with you yourself and your inner critic, what steps did you take to be able to come to peace with, or to accept and move further? Like how did you manage to get through it?
First step is like, imagine yourself that our first breath when we have the moment that we're born. And that particular moment is very important. Most of us forget, but really within deep in ourselves, that moment's still there, as of like the major root in ourselves, because that's the first oxygen intake we have in a manner of that physical being. And when we channel that, and that then when you can express that in a level, so you can actually move from that moment of struggle you're having. If you don't do that, it's just like beginning the meditation. If you make regulation on your breathing, then you can express that thought. Like you said, physically, you can just move the energy that's pressing you, and either via physical means of just making yourself shake, or you can do that wave within your mind, even without actual any physical movement. When we are a child, when we are first born, that first grasp of the oxygen creates the type of tunneling effect in our ecosystem the day we born till the day we die. And that vibration stays there in constant mode. And we just keep suppressing it as we get older. Our body keeps changing. And what happens is that we dilute it in the sense that we build layers above each other within ourselves. And idealistically, we could neutralize the whole ecosystem of ourselves, and that obviously requires a really good meditation and letting yourself to be free within your energy, which is most of us like not aware of many cases.
That's absolutely true. I remember going through this process and finding a good, relaxing audio to listen to, and I would just visualize myself laying there on the grass with these thought bubbles of all these negative thoughts that were trying to creep their way in, and just reaching up and popping it, so that they just disappear, and creating a visual and having those beats like that, the binaural beats and all that stuff really, really was effective.
And that's the thing.
Again, we are
so many techniques out there that you can use.
We are like a fountain. Our body's like a water fountain. Our body's like a water fountain. Just depends what regulation you put into that water fountain. and with our breathing and our heart rates and everything else is affecting that inner critic, and it's triggering some negative thoughts and positive thoughts. Sometimes both mix, basically like as if you drop the paint into the water. If you don't mix it, you're not going to get this different effects. But if you just leave it like that, it just stays on top type thing. And our inner scale is like that. So it's very delicate point, obviously, because it's linked within our instinct as well. So it's pretty difficult to separate both in many cases. And to understand your liquidity is the most important thing, because we are 99% of us almost a liquid form when we think of, and everything is really affect either our left side or right side in any given moment. Every single eye blink we have, the body molecule system changes. Obviously, we know ourselves, like from the childhood to the adulthood and so on and so forth. We are constant vibration, so that constant vibration really, in some moments in our inner critic be very correct to protect us, and some moments as inner critics really puts us mental blocks, mental energy that front of the something that we are inquisitive to find out, because we entering the unknown territory. In most cases in our life, every single moment is a known territory, so there's no guarantees of anything that you're going to see next on and so forth.
And this is a good example. It's a good example because you have like Kristen here, which she looks at things from one possible way, correct? And then you have Evangelos, which sees things from a completely different way. Mm-hmm. One is grounded differently than the other. Now, this is a perfect example of how you could actually make peace with your inner critic. It's really that, it's not that difficult. It's all about managing and doing the best and taking the power back and being able to understand and control what is going on within you, what's going on within your surroundings. You can't control everything all the time, but being able to make peace with it all. Now, we have Cindy here.
Absolutely. Imagine your inner critic is the wind, and it's coming to any directions, but you haven't got any sails to put up. The only sails you have is blink of your eye. And when you do that, you focus it on exactly what you mean about the moment, that you can really shift it.
Exactly. And that's key. Now we have here in the chat, we have Cindy saying that she had a prophetic dream where an angel came to me and touched my hand. She looked into my eyes and told me, "You can do it." I got up out of bed after 18 months of severe depression and began life again. I share my journey with anyone to help them. My subconscious released my holding myself back. Well, see, there you go. That's a perfect example, and thank you very much for sharing that vulnerability with all of us. So I appreciate you sharing that experience. It's not something easy for you to tell or share in a group of people that you may not know. But that is a perfect example of being open and feeling and understanding and having an open heart to be able to receive information. That's when intuition kicks in to say, you could do this. This is where the inner critic is. A lot of times they focus on the palpable or the concrete. Using your intuition to be able to connect with that and say, okay, what do I feel? What does this really feel like? Is this something I really should do or really not should do? Because your intuition is very rarely going to leave you to get hurt. So that's very, very important. But it's been a great conversation. I'm not ending the conversation, but I will be ending the show in a minute, the recording itself. However, I'm sure that we're going to be opening up to so many other conversations, and the people in the seats, feel free to stay, and also everyone in the room. But we're going to close out the recording bit, so we can have a nice, concise show here, and that type of thing. So here, Insight with Moonshadow, Episode 3, Intuition and Your Inner Critic. I want to be so thankful, and I am so appreciative of everyone that has shared their experiences, have come into this room and given all of their input and sharing as my phone goes off. Talk about organic. But I want to thank all of you for coming in, sharing your vulnerability, sharing your wounds, sharing pieces of your minds, hearts, and bodies, to be able to say, this is the physical, this is the mental, this is the spiritual aspect of me, and sharing with everyone in the room. So with all the amazing spirits in the room, I thank you, I appreciate you, and just be you. Question your authority. Pay it forward. Be yourselves, because what you say today may be impactful in 10 minutes or a lifetime. So thank you so much, and see you again soon.
Awesome.